So VSBA, Virginia School Board Association, as I've said many times, VSBA does not have any legal authority over us. It's a organization we pay a very large membership fee to every year and then pay for additional trainings on top of that. It was at VSBA trainings where they openly laughed at the idea of metal detectors and weapons detectors and all of the bills that the state had brought forward to pay for those, fund those for us. At VSBA trainings, VSBA is responsible for, what do they call it? It's the disruptive behavior. It is no longer allowed to be an arrestable offense in school. The VSBA is constantly telling us to water down our discipline rules, since that's what we're talking about tonight. The VSBA is not in favor of notifying parents about just about anything at all. They take common sense and they train it out of us as hard as they possibly can. And then you elect officials in Richmond, and they go down and they lobby using your taxpayer dollars to make sure that those changes that you wanted to see made are not made. At this point, I know originally I had brought it up as a left-right issue. However, the more time I have spent with them, it is actually a rich-poor issue. It is a matter of our county has a millions of dollars budget, whereas the VSBA is interested in the communities with the billions of dollars budgets. So they advocate for things like with the electric school buses, which, I don't care if you want electric or diesel. Out here, electric buses don't work. But diesel buses, about $100,000. Electric buses cost $400,000. So you've got some of these more wealthy counties who had buses that some of them were only 3 years old, and the VSBA lobbied to have your state and federal tax dollars spent to replace their entire bus fleets with $400,000 a piece buses. That doesn't even include the charge stations for them. Meanwhile, we're sitting around here in little old Warren County desperately trying to get our 8 buses at $100,000 a piece, and these larger counties who already have so much more money are just sucking down disgusting amounts of dollars. So we came up with the idea, had asked Aaron Mitchell to reach out to Loud and Fairfax, other localities where they were going to be getting this brand new bus fleet, and maybe we could buy their used buses. Oh, no. The strings attached with that grant money is the buses have to be scrapped. They fill the block with concrete, shred the bus, total waste. This is not, to me, environmentally friendly to be scrapping this number of buses. It certainly doesn't help us who can't afford to get the diesel buses that we so badly need. The VSBA, furthermore, you want to talk about bullying. VSBA loves to bully me. If I ask questions, well, what about this or what about that? And when I say ask questions, I attended a Q&A session on a training for how to be a delegate. Question and answer session. When I started asking questions that they didn't like. Now, these were not controversial questions. These were questions about how I read their rule book, and I had figured out ways that I could better advocate for what Warren County needed. And I wanted to find out more about how to submit our own lobbying positions. Like, if we're going to be in this organization, great. I wanted to utilize them to lobby on our behalf, and the things that they were lobbying for that was not on our behalf, I wanted to find out how we excluded ourselves from that. And they ended the training 30 minutes early, muted me, and ended the training. Not kidding. And then sent a letter to Dr. Pence's home complaining about our board's selection to have me represent us with the VSBA. And complained repeatedly about the fact that I do ask questions. As for their policy services, we left those last year. The VSBA is responsible for many of the policies or lack thereof that we have that are creating the problems that you are seeing in our school system today. Why would we want to continue to pay for those policies? I don't want to continue to pay for those policies. And for this last year, we haven't been. We have slowly been discovering along the way that an incident happens, we go look up policy, and I'm pulling one policy and then another policy. I'm like, okay, well, this policy doesn't say the same thing as that one. Or, oh, well, there was supposed to be an agreement between the school system and Child Protective Services when instances of child abuse happen in school. But, oh, oopsie, we just had this form letter from the VSBA, but didn't actually have anything truly in place to protect the children. As I had said before, we had submitted legislative priority changes to the VSBA. They rejected every single one of them. They do not give a reason why. They did not ask questions. They did not give any discussion period whatsoever. They just said no and moved on. We did have one that passed through, but ironically, that was the same one that I had submitted last year that they shot down, which was to request that state and federal funding be spent towards safety features inside of the school instead of prioritizing energy efficient renovations. I love energy efficiency. If my HVAC system goes out, I'll replace it with an energy efficient one. However, what they're encouraging is you've got a perfectly fine working HVAC system. Let's go ahead and replace it with something that's more energy efficient. There are tons of alternatives to their trainings, things that you do not have to pay as a board. You know, what was it, $16,000 a year or something like that, just to be a member of, and then on top of that, pay for the classes. So there are cheaper ways that we can be trained, and quite frankly, better ways for us to be trained. So a year ago, I asked to leave the VSBA. I very much listened to the comments of, hey, you know, like, try to work with them, play their game. I said, all right, great. I will play their game, and I have put in a substantial amount of time and effort into playing their game, and it is busy work, and it is wasting my time, it is wasting this community's time, it's wasting this community's money, and so you got to know when it's time to cut bait, and it is time to cut bait. So that is my presentation on the VSBA.
Okay, we're good. The only question that I had about it, and it looks like we have the answer here, and Mr. Grant, you just checked on our prices for board docs, and if we lose them immediately, because of course that's what's holding all of our meetings and our policies currently, and it looks like our contract, I mean, you can tell us.
Through March. We have a contract through March, so we can hang on to that, and then we can, use that time to, migrate to another system.
Is there a motion?
I move that we end our relationship with the VSBA.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Any discussion on this?
Yes, I would like to speak on that. First, I want to say thank you to Mrs. Salins for her work on this VSBA issue over the last year. I know we've thanked you at meetings before, but I'm very sincere in wanting to recognize the time and effort you've put into this. I do believe you've given them a chance over the past year, and I understand the reasons for the conclusions you've made. I will say personally, I don't agree with that. I don't think the VSBA is a perfect organization, and I think many of the points that you've made are correct, so I agree with you on many of those. However, looking at the big picture, I do think that the VSBA is more aligned with us than not aligned. If you're looking at their legislative positions, there's two versions. There's the 90-page version that has like a lot of intricate detail and probably hundreds of positions, I'm going to say. And then there's the short version, which is typically what they would be passing out to people, which is like 2 pages, I think, maybe 3, and it has just kind of bullet points of what their main thrust is. And in reviewing those, I mean, their main points that they're lobbying for are local support for schools, support for funding from state and local governments, including for infrastructure, for broadband, for employment, paying salaries. School safety is one of them. So I just think overall, legislatively, they are still pulling for most of the things that would help us, more so than not, even though it's not in every single case. So I'm not disagreeing with what you've said. I just have come to a different conclusion personally. I also think I don't know that it would be fair to say that the VSBA is responsible for the policies that we have. We did follow their policy positions for a number of years, and I agree with you that we have policies that disagree with each other and are inconsistent, but I think part of that is just due to it having built up over many years, predating all of us that are currently on this board. I think there is a need for us to go through with our attorneys, which is something that we've previously voted on and are working on, to review all those, make sure they make sense, make sure they are in line with our values and what we want. And I think that is part of the conversation that we were having earlier that needs to happen. But I wouldn't put that at the feet of the VSBA. I think that's our responsibility as a school district to address those. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
I just had I'm looking at some finances here. I just want to make sure I'm clear in understanding it. So I know we have the cost of the board docs. So if we don't have VSBA, we can pay it's $10,200. I'm sorry, with the VSBA. Without it, it's $12,000. So one option, we could still continue that platform. We just pay, $1,800 more. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then the cost for us to be in VSBA this year is, so you would add that $9,353 to what we're paying, the $10,200. So we're looking at $19,553.
Correct.
If we continue
Yes.
to stay in it versus if we don't, our cost is going to be $12,000. Make sure I'm just reading all that
Yes,
correctly.
that's how I
Okay.
understood it too.
Okay. So because, I think maybe my very first year I utilized one of their trainings. I'm just, also trying to weigh out the cost benefits of what we use, because right now we're not doing policies through them. We talk to our attorneys. We're paying all this. I'm kind of like, what are we getting from it? I'm looking at, budgets here and stuff. So I just want to make sure I had that all correct in my brain. And I do want to thank Ms. Salins. She's made a great concerted effort to, we said, hey, let's try. And unfortunately, we were kind of, we weren't accepted there. So, but I thank you, because you have definitely, without a doubt, given it your time and your energy, and I appreciate that. So, cost-wise, though, I'm just looking at, we're paying this money. What are we getting from them? When we still have those same things we're getting from when we have those conversations with our attorneys, and we rely on our attorneys, and they know our county, and they know, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yes, I looked at it from kind of a perception thing of them. They do provide some services that are worthwhile, but I look at the return for what we're putting in and what we're getting. Then I look at our geographic location, and there's other counties here in the valley that sort of get snubbed by them also. Who knows this county better than everyone in this room? And I think we're able to move forward and, like the folks were saying earlier, get our discipline squared away, that sort of stuff, without the SBA. And I would also like to thank my co-seat here for all the work that she's put into this. Long time ago, when we appointed Ms. Salins to this board after Mr. Williams left, we all said she will do her homework, and I believe you'd have to give her an A+ on that one. So thank you, Ms. Salins, and it's a pleasure to sit next to you. But as far as SBA, we usually go to our own attorney for advice rather than the SBA attorney. So I'm in favor of leaving the Virginia School Board Association.
I've said it several times before, and when I voted for us to stay last time, it was simply because, hey, we're going to give it a shot with a delegate that actually brings what Warren County wants before them on these positions, and you've done absolutely that, and it didn't really get us anywhere. So, I mean, I think we tried, and I don't see the benefit at this time. I think with that, unless anybody else has any discussion, I'm going to ask Mr. Grant to do a roll call.
Certainly. Dr. Funk? Aye. Mrs. Salins?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
No.
Mr. Rinaldi?
Aye.
Dr. Pence?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have the student support position.